Turn the headphones up. Hey. Oh. Yeah. Well, I guess you can call me a dreamer. Hey. But I do believe that things will change. We've been through the storm. Yeah. We've gone through the valley. There's nowhere else to go but up.
We shall overcome.
We will.
We shall overcome.
Yeah.
We shall overcome. Someday.
Now if you believe that, just help me sing it.
We shall overcome.
We shall overcome.
We shall overcome.
We shall overcome racism.
We shall overcome.
Hatred.
Someday.
Jealousy. Now even if you don't believe it, help me say this.
We'll walk hand in hand.
Walk hand in hand.
We'll walk hand in hand.
I already see it.
We'll walk hand in hand.
Yeah.
Someday.
See, it don't matter what color you are, where you come from.
We'll walk hand in hand.
You're my brother.
We'll walk hand in hand.
You're my sister, my friend.
We'll walk hand in hand.
Yeah.
Someday.
I really like this part right here. Freedom.
We will all be free.
We will all be free.
We will all be free.
I believe it and I receive it today.
We will all be free.
Freedom.
Someday.
Now just help me say it one more time if you believe that. We will all be free.
We will all be free.
Free from our father's sins. Free from our own sins. Free from racism, from jealousy, from hatred.
We'll all be free.
Someday.
Someday.
Let's take it to the chorus. Oh, deep in my heart.
Deep in my heart.
I do believe
I do
that
we shall overcome.
yes,
Someday.
let it be today.
Deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday.
Turn the headphones up.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening again. This is Faisal Kader, starting our regular episode. Today is our episode 6, believe me or not. And thank you, everyone, from joining around the world. And today, we are once again in front of you with 7 highly talented next generation young individuals. From all over the world. Actually, today we're having folks from around the US as well as from Bangladesh. Actually, we have one individual from Bangladesh with us. As I was telling you last time, that the goal is to bring everybody from around the world, not only from US. And today's topic is a very timely topic. It's mental health. As you all know, we are all still in lockdown situation. We're not able to go out as we wish, so I think it's very important for us, especially our next generation, to kind of talk about it. What's their feeling? What do they think? Even if they want to go out with their friends, they cannot. Let's say they want to go out for a quick lunch, dinner, outing. They want to go to the beach. Everything is becoming a little difficult, as you can tell, with the current situation. So let's not talk too much. Let the new generation talk and express their feelings. And again, I'm going to go back on stage today, like as usual. I'm going to bring in 2 moderators. So let me bring Farhana Mo, as you all know, and then also bring Zarab Shah Ahmed. our two moderators. Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good, good. And thank you again for joining us. Let us begin. Let me introduce let you introduce them. So, you guys talk. Let me go back in the backstage, and then I will come back shortly after we do the talk. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. So, good afternoon, friends. And yes, it's our sixth episode of Best Talks today. And I mean, time just flies. We just started off spontaneously, and here we are on our sixth episode. And I'm Farhana Zaman, and joining me, our second moderator today is Rafsham Ahmed. She will be hosting the later part of the episode. As always, Best represents the young voices of the millennials. Best is all about talking to you, raising awareness, and discussing issues that impact our lives the most, like mental health. 3 months into this coronavirus pandemic and an underlying health crisis, which is becoming as critical as the novel coronavirus, is mental health. It's resulting from isolation and fear, uncertainty and financial losses, panic over COVID-19 deaths. This is all generating some kind of psychological trauma, which we can't get around very easily. And to give you some background about mental health condition as of now, a Kaiser Family Foundation poll told us that there are nearly half a million Americans have reported the coronavirus crisis is harming their mental health. A federal emergency hotline for people in emotional distress registered more than 1,000% increase in April last month actually compared to the same time last year. Also in April, there were almost 20,000 people texting a hotline, which is run by Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. So that is how much unstable people have become mentally. Although it's just not something that we speak about regularly because we just don't think we haven't spoken in that language for a long time. And I'm really glad that our panelists today have decided to speak on it. So mental health is real, and our panelists today who will be discussing what mental health means to them. Uh, Before I begin, I want to introduce our panelists today. So we have with us Amira Ahmed, Naziat Noreen, Mahdi Hassan, Mohammed Omar Hussain, Jahin Rahman, Sophie Chaudhry, and Saif Hussain. Thank you so much, guys, for coming over and speaking about such a critical issue that is mental health. And of course, the language is very critical to this because I don't think we have ever practiced speaking about mental health to each other. So this might be very enlightening for our viewers. And of course, I do request our viewers to put in their questions, to know what they're thinking, and to understand, how mental health is something that it has to be communicated, and it's more important than ever today. So thank you for participating again. And I would like to start with Amira. So, Amira, you are an upcoming senior in Centennial High School from Maryland. And, during some data digging that I did, I found out some data models by certain researchers which indicate that natural disasters, terrorist attacks, and economic downtowns, these show a maximum likely increase in suicide and substance abuse due to post-traumatic stress and depression. You are in this situation where there is actually a natural disaster that even if though we don't call it a natural disaster or rather natural more of a catastrophe going on. So I want to ask you how difficult it has been for you to take care of your mental health.
Well, in terms of now with COVID, when it started getting really bad, the things that I planned for, because as you said, I'm an incoming senior. I was gonna have like college tours. I was gonna take the SAT and like the exam. So when those were put on hold, like I was very like stressed and scared of how this was gonna impact my future because I don't know how with college applications and all those stuff coming up, like I don't know how that's gonna work. Like I don't know what's gonna change, and yeah, it like stressed me out even more because like I couldn't, with also like not being able to go out anywhere, not seeing people, and like just seeing how bad it was getting. Yeah, that definitely took a toll on me, and I try my best to like keep hope and like think that everything will turn out fine. But there would be times where I just like thought like maybe like this isn't gonna end well. But yeah, I mean, yeah.
I mean, when you said you're trying to keep hold during those times, what do you really do? Do you communicate with somebody, or do you look forward to reading something? What is that thing that you do that actually helps you feel better?
Well, what to help me feel better, I've been talking to my parents, most my mom, about this because she's like my rock. She really does like help me with all these things. She's always helped me with like in terms of school and everything. She really just helped me. Like she just let me vent to her and like tell her like how I'm feeling, like how stressful it is, and she told me, like I think everything will turn out fine. Because in terms of school, I think if the COVID like started like I guess in the beginning of the school year, so say like late 2019, like over here, like around like October, November, I think that would have like much of a bigger impact because in a way I did finish my school year at a time where I guess like everything was finished. I still had some things to do, but like I guess like in terms of my junior year because that's like the most stressful year. Like here, it's like we have a lot of exams. We have like we have to prepare to like apply to colleges. So in terms of that, I think like 75% of my work was like done. I still have a couple of things, but my mom told me like you did the most you can, and you still will be able to do more. So, but yeah, like she's a good listener too. Sometimes she just lets me talk, and at times she will give me like good advice, and it helps me. So.
Yeah, I'm glad actually, because I think it's a very, very important communication, communication that you need to have with your parents about this, because it's just so important. Like just because mental health is such a taboo in our society. Thank you, Amira. My next question is to Naziat. So Naziat, I mean, again, research has basically said that mental health is a big contributing factor and because of the anxiety, fear, and depression during the COVID-19 situation, it is definitely a contributing factor to this. So, who, according to you, you have been listening to news. So, who, according to you, has been most impacted by this whole global pandemic? And by who it could be, I don't know if you think about the professions that have been most likely impacted, or is it there's a certain group of people that have been impacted the most. What, according to you, has been that impact, and on whom?
So thank you, Farhana. So in my opinion, Black people are the most affected. There are statistics that Black communities have higher proportional death rates during the pandemic than any other group. Black people are not given the right care in healthcare, and in the communities, they don't have necessities like grocery stores and the same foods and resources that we do. Most of these communities are very impoverished, and we need to put our resources back into those marginalized communities. So in 2016, there was a study that asked medical students ethical questions, what their opinions were on other races. In result of this research, 50% of medical students, professions, and residents believe that Black people felt less pain, and that their skin is thicker and their nerves didn't work the same way.
Oh my God,
This is a very frightening. I'm sorry?
Yeah, that is just outrageous.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. I certainly felt very angry reading that. And I think it's very important that we all educate ourselves. So obviously this concept is a myth from the time of slavery. So at the end of the day, Black people are not given the right care, and people need to educate themselves. All these statistics and data from this 4-month period in quarantine, and how Black people have been dying in a much higher rate, um, as well as we are experiencing a racial pandemic. And I think that people need to be aware that this is happening currently.
You raise a great point, and I think I love what you said. Racial pandemic. I mean, just last week we talked about George Floyd and the social unrest in the country, and I heard the set of them, and they just talked about how difficult it has been because of just another color and another race that is very different from just being white.
Mm-hmm.
And what you say is exactly supporting that voice that was raised last week. And I mean, I can't imagine that how that community feels, how vulnerable they feel actually within the community, that if they're not welcomed and they're not supported by a healthcare system that is supposed to be one of the best in this country.
Mm-hmm.
I think yes, racial pandemic is a good way to put it, and yes, maybe if we have missed it that last week, we mental health is definitely different for those guys, and I'm not sure what we can do, but I think that is a voice that should go out to the public that this isn't a racial pandemic; it's a global pandemic.
Yeah.
So thank you, Nazir, for pointing that out.
And I would just like to add that you mentioned how you're not sure what you could do. There are a lot of petitions that um, people could sign, and a lot of donations that would really help also.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is what I mean, that not sure what we can do directly, but what you say today is what if we can all work on change the way we think. I think yes, we can definitely do it together. So you make a great point there. So moving on, my next question is to Mahdi from Bangladesh. So Mahdi, you finished your SSC exams, and um, you must be, I know you were just talking yesterday about how difficult it is for you because you live in a red zone. So be safe. That's all I can say. My question to you: over the past few months, there's a lot of critical news that has been circulating around, and I would understand that even Bangladesh, it just there is a lot of news outside, especially about the number of people dying. So just thinking about reflecting on all those news that you have been reading, the death toll, the unemployment statistics, how frontline workers have been ending their lives. How do you think media is playing their role? Are they responsible, enough, and they're providing a credible source of information, or this is just too much information and a stressor to mental health?
Yes, I think the media is playing an important role because without any information, we can know about our society news and also about our country during this pandemic. Though we are suffering a lot by mental stress and so on, but we need to stick with media because we have to know about this pandemic situation. If we don't get any news, that will be bad for us because without any vital information, we can even move. But sometimes some media spread fake news, which is very harmful for us, for our also society. But I think media should give their best effort to give us real news and should give awareness about the novel coronavirus. And our duty is we should justify what they show us because sometimes they also do mistakes. So I think we should also be careful about media news. I would like say a funny phenomenon before COVID-19 in our country. Some fake reporter has reported that salt price started increasing to 200 taka, but we used to buy salt only 35 taka. For this, some fake newses, our country nation become so hazy. They like, oh no, our salt stock has been finished, so we should buy stock. We should buy salt more and more. So all of people buying started buying salt at on 200 taka. It was a very fake news for those reporters who did this. Then the government claimed that it was a fake news. No one should buy salt at 200 taka. So yeah, for this kind of fake news, we for this fake news can harm the nation in a single moment. So we should also be awareness about what they say. So yeah, every news is all news are real, we can say, but we should justify is that real or not. But I have to say that they are playing an important role. That's it.
um that's true, they are playing an important role. But just in terms of mental health as well, do you think, because I was going through some articles, and something very important that they said is that experts, they try to not say people the number of suicides that happened in a year, because this could encourage, or this is kind of a contagion effect that could have on someone else. So now that we are I think news has been telling about the frontline workers who died because of this pandemic and everything else that happened. Do you think it really impacts a person's mental health in a way that they feel like they can do the same thing? And does news actually allow help with that effect?
No, this kind of news are not allowed to our society because these are very harmful for those people who are trying to
Hmm.
do these things. Because doing suicidal is like you killed your own life in a moment. So
Right.
suicidal is not a solution. You have to think that what can I do? You have one. You're all ways are closed. That doesn't matter. You have to find a new way to do something new. So I think people should not run for their suicidal attempts or so on. They should run for new solutions.
Hmm.
They should stay patiently. They should they should not be so panicked. They should trust. They should have trust in their own, so that they can do many things. If they don't have trust on their own, so I think they can do anything. So I
Right.
think the main point is you have to trust in yourself. If you don't trust in yourself, then you can do anything. So first you have to trust in yourself. Don't think what others says. Don't think what others do. Think yourself. Think by yourself. Think that what you are. You have to think that you are good. But I think this kind of suicidal news are very, very, no, very, very bad for our
Yeah.
society because one seeing that he is so poor, that's why he can live, that's why he done suicide. So I think other will try to attempt that I am also poor, so I think I should do suicide. But this is not a solution doing a suicide.
Yeah.
So I think people take necessary steps about these suicidal attempts. People should not do this. If they do, they will kill their life in a single moment. But their life is very valuable. Our life is very valuable. We can do anything. We are human, and we have to educate others in this pandemic. We have to encourage others that don't do this. Do other things. Do what you can do. That's it.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point there, right there, that we need to talk to each other. So even if media is actually talking about, because I think it's very proven that there is an effect called contagion, wherein stuff that is negative can actually spread out like fire. And you raise a great point that if there is communication, if you're communicating even while watching the news, you ought to do better or feel better about what you should do versus what you should not do. So thank you, Mahdi. That
Thank you
was
very much.
actually interesting, and I love the way that you say that you trust yourself and you need to do what you need to do. That is right there, good mental health. So my next question is to Jahin. You are in high school as well. So Jahin, mental health is a taboo in our society. And I wanted to ask that how do we address the stigma that surrounds mental health in our community? And more importantly, because you're going to high school, I would like to ask that how do you think your parents or your friends play a very important role in this whole mental health conversation?
So definitely, like going into high school, or rather at the stage that I am in currently, like as a junior, and then this whole situation happened, right? And our lives kind of changed completely. And of course, when you go through a transition like that, you have kind of a tremendous effect on your mental health. And oftentimes you don't know how to address it, right?
Hmm.
So you try to deal with with it yourself. and often you don't find any solutions. So who's the next person that you go to? You go to your parents, or you go to your friends, or the community. And I just think that, like growing up in a Bengali household or in a Bengali society in general, often mental health is not given as much importance as it should be given, right? Last summer, I was I was working with NBC News, and at the end of the summer, we had to do a project about a topic of our choosing. And I had a friend there who was also working with me, and he did his project on mental health. And it was basically like he came up with a really nice slideshow and a really nice article about his friend, who was also Bengali, and he was going through some mental health struggles. And in the beginning of the story, he talked about how often he tried to go to his friends or his family or his community in general, which was predominantly Bengali, and he didn't really receive the kind of support that he needed, and ended up with a story of drug abuse and just kind of totally disengaged himself from schoolwork. And he was going through a crisis, a mental crisis, definitely. And then at the end, everything kind of sorted out by itself, well, not by itself, but through his talking to his parents, a psychologist. And, the churning moment of the story was when his parents started realizing that, hey, my son is actually going through a problem. He might not be physically sick, but he's still at SIG, and he really needs help, and we need to help him. And that's the realization when everything kind of like ticked in the right place. So I think that to rather ask the question that what can we do in the Bengali community to address mental health stigma and who should we go to for support, I think that's a really large question. Because again, as much as we think that we can change the world, and we definitely can, but I think we should like definitely start small. So I would think that if you're going through a mental health struggle, the first person is to just reach out to your parents. I know that often we feel like, our parents don't understand us because of the generation gap, the age gap, the mentality gap also. But the thing is that our parents are parents at the end of the day. Like, they have memories of us that even we don't have. And it's kind of funny, but to think of it, it's like we have seen our life partially, and they have seen it fully from the moment that we were born. So, as much as we think that our parents don't understand us, I think just reaching out to them and telling them, hey, this is what's going on, and I'm struggling. So what do you think I should do? And I'm pretty sure that your parents will support you because they're just parents and that's their job, and they're kind of hardwired to do that. And start off really small. Just go to your parents and then start off small. Then I guess go out to some of your trusted friends and reach out to them and say that, hey, can we talk? And I know, like, for me personally, talking doesn't work very well for me. I'm very action-packed. So during this pandemic itself, to cope up with my mental health, I've tried to do some stuff for Bangladesh, kind of give them some resources. Over here, I worked with some council members to see how I can combat the pandemic and what I can do personally. So that's how it works for me. Like, I am very action-packed. I like to do things. I like to get hands-on and see how I can help the situation. But for some of my friends, talking really helps. So just reach out to your closest friend and just have a really nice, genuine conversation. Because oftentimes we use our friends as a method to just joke off, fool around, which I think is completely fine. I do it too. But again, you can sometimes have serious conversations with your friends, and that's something that you need to understand. And you can just reach out to your friends, talk to them, reach out to your closest ones, and see what they say. And like I mentioned before, just start off small. Reach out to your parents, reach out to your friends, and little by little, you can just get the word out. And before you know it, you're going to have like a really supportive community around you who are going to help you through whatever you need. So that's what I think we should do right now in terms of mental health.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great story you have right there. I mean, the fact that they were able to detect it so early on is a blessing in disguise. And that's true. We sometimes think what people will be thinking about us when we talk about these things, but in truth, in a sense, if there is a way you can self-screen yourself and know that, yes, I'm going through some trouble, and talking to someone, professional, and talking to my parents, just telling them that I don't feel good about any of this would help. Yes, we need to definitely come forward. And I love that story because, something good has come out of it. Oftentimes, the stories we hear is that we missed it, or we didn't see the signs. It was not really a big warning. So I think you're right. You're definitely right that this is good. And I'm glad that some people are it's getting better. People are noticing it better. So thank you so much, Rahin, for that.
Thank you.
My next question is for Sophie. Sophie, you're an upcoming senior at Churchill High School from Maryland. Now that many states are actually planning up to reopen, with the hope that our lives will get back to normal. How do you think mental health will be impacted as we transit from like a 3 month isolation to probably dining outside now, allowed to go to work, and probably wear masks but still be grocery shopping without a limit? What do you think?
Okay, so first I'd like to talk about the two main negative effects that happened like during the lockdown and on mental health, which are isolation and anxiety. So for isolation, humans they work and think together, and during this isolation, that's all changed. Also, anxiety has come up, and no one knows really how long this is going to last for, which impacts people's activities, schools, summer jobs, and vacations, and just jobs in general. Or and people don't know what will happen to the people who are going to college next year. Also, um, isolation previously now it'll slowly start to be revealed and everyone will be going out to parks, events, and doing things just like they normally would all before this happened, which will they will start having social interactions again, and the anxiety it will improve since we're slowly starting to go out more and we're going to interact with other people, which we can be positive about and look forward towards. Also, I I think we just all have to be optimistic about this and have a guarded optimism about moving forward in this direction. But it also may put us back into lockdown if things get too much out of hand. And then CDC provides guidelines, which I think we would still need to follow about keeping our distance, wearing masks, just like you said. And then also I would want to see what society needs are, what my family needs are, friends needs are, and still go around those. And then I wouldn't want to put anyone in any type of bad situation since the problem and corona is still out there and it's still a really big problem. For example, if there's people who I know who have lung problems or any type of problem, I would still want to keep my distance or maybe not even hang out with them just to keep them safe. But I still we would still need to keep our distance and maintain all the safety regulations we are now.
Yeah, that's good advice, actually,
Yeah.
Sophie. Just to continue to be very, very careful, even though everything would open up. But Sophie, also, I want to ask that: do you think that it is still going to be mentally very difficult? Because I mean, a 3 month isolation, you've just not been there. Like I sometimes think that I've become socially awkward around people just because I've just not spoken to someone for a long time. And then, even when I'm crossing paths with people while I'm taking a walk, I'm just not sure that I want to get too close to them. And we are people of habit, right? So I mean, just thinking about that, do you think that you have been mentally very, very cautious now? And has this really been difficult for you suddenly to get back to your normal life, or you just don't know how to get back to it?
So it definitely has changed, and I think it might take a while for me and maybe others to get back to how they used to be and like all their interactions with people because since we've basically been in our houses for so long, for so many months, we have kind of lost how to interact with people and it will be awkward at first, but I feel like slowly things will get back to normal and we'll still, yeah, like interactions, everything, they'll be back to normal and nothing's going to be awkward again.
Right.
But there still will be things we will be unsure about.
All right. I think so too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've forgotten how to start that conversation with the passerby. So I think, yes, definitely it'll be difficult to get back to normal
Yeah.
now. But thank you for that,
Mhm.
Sophie. So my next question is for Omar. Omar, you're in high school and you are required to follow strict routine, when you're attending these virtual classes, because of course you are doing your classes, right? And you can't just basically come out there and say, okay, I'm here. I mean, you have to be really present and do what you need to do. So I just wanted to ask, is it important and is it actually even feasible, in your opinion, to keep up with the appearance of a normal life while you're going through this, quarantine time, like getting dressed for a Zoom meeting, eating at specific times, following regular routines like you would have followed earlier? Do you think this is something that would have make your mental health stronger?
Well, yeah, routines are really important for our overall mental structure and development, but it is extremely hard right now because of quarantine. Due to quarantine, schools, gyms, restaurants, movie theaters, etc., are all closed. So we have to find different ways to maintain our regular schedule, but at home. Even though it is so easy to just relax all day, it is important to uphold our responsibilities to schoolwork, home chores, and find creative, healthy ways to entertain ourselves and maintain our relationships with our friends and community. I'm privileged to have a community with many resources, but we all have to acknowledge that Black people do not have the same privileges and resources as us. They don't have the same safety as we do during this quarantine. While we're all dealing with this pandemic, there's also a racial pandemic that's going on that'll continue even when this virus is over. So we have to make sure to pay attention to underprivileged communities who are dealing with everything going on right now the hardest. Many of those communities heavily rely on school for half of the resources I have, such as a hot meal and a direct education. So while I know this is really hard for all of us, mental health is serious, but we can all tackle it when we're all there for each other.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, when you talk about privileges, that's just another viewpoint completely. Yes, we're just very lucky that we have those privileges, and I think that is one of the reasons why we can keep our mental health in check. But also, I just want to know that, you know, just regularly, like, is it something that you actually do every day? Like, do you have that motivation that, yes, if to keep myself sane and to make things work, even without the privileges, like I am going to go the way I used to work around things, except probably just not stepping out of home? I mean, do you think you feel motivated every day to wake up to that kind of a routine?
I think, yeah, we should all have that motivation. I get my motivation through, like, I have to get good grades, so I have to like check up on my Zoom meetings and do my work. But like for everyone else, we have to be productive and stimulate our minds, or else it'll show in the real world. So
Right. Thank you. That is actually very thoughtful. And thank you so much for that.
yeah.
My next question is for Saif. So, Saif, you are in high school as well, and this is something much more vocal about a little bit of how the American healthcare is working. So, I came across a few news while I was doing the research, like the Mississippi governor relieves nonprofits like Mental Health Policy Institute and the National Institute of Mental Health. These are just a few names who have been advocating to the government about increasing oversight on mental health. In your opinion, is our current government ready and prepared to address mental health?
Mm, no, in my opinion, I don't believe government is ready or qualified to address mental health for Americans for numerous reasons. One example I have is when the coronavirus was emerging in March, the government was very unprepared and said they had it under control, which is obviously not the case, which the cases in corona spiked very highly. And but however, since the government was so calm about it, it gave the Americans a sense of complaciveness, which very rapidly turned into panic once they're aware of the real risk. The government has repeatedly shown that it is incapable to show the true severity of problems that face this country, and therefore they're not ready to address mental health.
Yeah, that is something I read from, yes, the research as well. But do you think that they're not ready to address mental health? But do you also think that they have been doing anything about it? Because I think there have been a lot of signs about mental health. So, I mean, have you been reading? Because I know you did some research yesterday. Have you been reading about anything that they did to actually promote mental health? Or when you're watching the news, has there been any update that, okay, if you feel disturbed about COVID-19 here and how this is where you can reach? I mean, have you come across anything from school, from these TV outlets, anything of that sort?
Unfortunately, from what I've seen from the media, all they've been doing to address mental health is trying to calm down Americans by like saying just straight out false information, like it's being contained or the cases are surely to go down soon, very soon. But anyone that has done their research will obviously find that's untrue,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore is the mindset in America is very split. For people who do their research, they're very panicked about the severity of the situation, but people who actually believe what the government is saying is they're very calm about it and they're more relaxed. That's why that's why I'm pretty sure the cases are not going down because the government is spreading these lies, which makes them more relaxed about the situation and they don't want to follow any of the restrictions.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think that's a false sense of, assurance that is happening here. And I think I like the way you say that, yes, the government needs to do more. It's not good enough. They're just giving a false assurance over here. So that's point noted. Thank you, Saif. We have one last question. And although we were done with our first round of finalists, this is a burning question that we could not leave out. And I'm so glad that Naziat actually volunteered to answer this question. So, Nazir, about the healthcare system, I just wanted to know that I definitely know that therapy is expensive. So, do you think we have trouble accessing mental health services because of the coronavirus pandemic?
Yes, I definitely think so. As a frontline healthcare worker, I've been working full time during the pandemic, and we have had limited access to gloves, face masks, and hand sanitizer. And because I work in a pharmacy and we dispense medications, PPE is essential in my everyday work routine. Um, and I know you're asking a different question. I just wanted to highlight that um, that the U.S. is very they are not prepared at all for this pandemic, and as well as non-essential buildings being closed during this time. Um, Doctors' offices, pharmacies, grocery stores have been open. However, mental health facilities have been closed. A lot of people have been doing telehealth. Um, and I think that that's good that they're able to access uh, some sort of therapy or uh, their appointments are still able to they're still able to get. So I just wanted to say that despite not being prepared for this pandemic, many communities have been joining together and helping by making reusable cloth masks, as well as well as making like hand sanitizer with aloe vera gel and alcohol. So we've been using a lot of our, even though we have not been prepared, we have been using the resources that we have.
Yeah, wow. So it's just coming together, and if you reach out, someone is going to reach back out to you. So within the community, which is a very very important takeaway from Naziat's conversation, because you feel bad, reach out to someone, someone will reach back to you. I mean, that is the kind of assurance you have to have in the community that you do, if at all the country in itself is not prepared for something like this. Um, that's interesting. And I just wanted to let you all know as well that because we have our viewers listening, proactively, our communities have been distributing a lot of self screening health checks. Try to look at them and give it to the right people, because sometimes you just don't know how you would know that you have mentally been worried a lot, and what's bothering you, and how you can put it out to other people who can actually help you with it. So thank you so much, Nazia, and thank you. You guys were great, and I think we can go on about mental health, just because it's been hovering all over, and then we just haven't had the chance to really discuss about it. So thank you, best panelists, again for bringing your opinions to the table. But the discussion isn't over yet. So I would just request our viewers to post their questions, because Rafsha, she will be leading our next segment, and she will be talking again, opening up more questions that you have with our panelists. Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you guys. I think you guys have shared something very insightful things about mental health. I don't think we talk about mental health a lot. It's very, like we mentioned, a taboo thing. And so I think especially right now when we have so much time to reflect and introspect ourselves, it's like important to discuss this. But now we're gonna take a little break into the presentation section of this show. And so Sophie and Amira here and myself are gonna share some things that we've been doing to keep us busy during this quarantine, because being productive, I think, and feeling like purposeful in life is like very important to your mental health. And so Sophie is a dancer. She's a wonderful dancer, and she's going to share a video clip of a dance she's done before. And so we're going to show the clip now. I guess the sound wasn't working, but so that's kind of unfortunate. I'm not sure what happened. But Sophie, do you want to tell us a little bit about either this performance or like what dancing means to you, and like how long have you been dancing?
So I've been dancing, I think, since I was about 6 or 7. So I've been doing it for that long. And then I recently kind of stopped just to focus more on my schools and studies. Because I think that's just more important, because dance is like, it's still a hobby for me, and I'll still do it whenever I want to, but I just want to focus more on my school and studies. But that dance, it was a group. There were 2 people who were my mom's friends who wanted me to dance in a few Bengali events. I think it was a few events, like 4 or 5 events with them. And then we only had a week or 2 to actually learn all the dances that we did, which was barely enough time, but we still managed to like have a great show and performance. It was really fun doing it.
No, definitely.
No, actually, there were some technical difficulty. I'm so sorry. Apologize. For some reason, that clip with the audio, there's some disconnection between that. So what I can do is, Sophie, since we couldn't play that, let's take another 30 seconds of another dance, Zarafsha, if we can. And then that has a sound. So I really wanted the audience to enjoy that. So, let me go back and play that, and then we can move on to the next, your cooking.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you can tell that it was like a beautiful dance. I think being part of like being connected to like our culture is so important.
Yeah.
And so I think that's incredible that you're still doing that. And I think now you have a lot of time to like practice again.
Right, yeah.
Yay! That was wonderful.
Thank you.
A lot of people, I think, right now, like a lot of kids don't really do like classical dancing, so that was very exciting to see. So, do you still like dancing? Do you still do dancing?
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. That's awesome. I think keep practicing and keep in touch with this. So now we're going to go on. Okay, before we move on, I want to encourage the audience to keep asking questions because we're going to have a Q&A section after. So thank you, Sophie, for sharing your dancing with us. Now I want to share something I've been doing during quarantine. So because I've had so much time, I've been trying to cook a lot more. And so something I've recently made is orange marmalade, which is just like orange jam. And here are like pictures of like the finished product. Unfortunately, I wasn't really planning on sharing anything, so I don't have like the process, pictures of the process, but I guess I can tell you a little bit about how I made it. it was kind of a long process, and we had accidentally bought too many oranges, and so we had a lot of leftover oranges that we didn't want to go bad, and so you kind of just like boiled it and like boiled the juice and put in sugar and just kind of like it gets sticky after you boil it for a long time, like the juice and the sugar, and once it cools down it becomes the sticky like honey kind of goodness, and it's really awesome. And I would encourage other people to do it. It takes a long time to make, but I think it's totally worth it. And I think homemade goods are so like exciting to have at home and so refreshing. And I think right now a lot of people are making bread, and a lot of people are just like trying more different like cooking or like baking. And so I just wanted to share with everyone something I've done to keep me busy during quarantine. Baking has always been something important to me. And I think Amira also has something to share, something she's baked. I think she's a baker. So do you want to share what you've done and how that was like?
So in quarantine, like when we were in like a mandated lockdown, I started watching like a lot of recipes online, and I like learned like how to make cookies, and I never realized like how easy it is. Yeah, like baking has also been like an important thing like growing up. I mean, I didn't do a lot of it, but I helped my sister out with it a lot because she used to make a lot of brownies and like cupcakes and cakes, and my mom too. So I used to at first use like pre-made cookie dough, and then I started just making them from scratch. I'm actually making cookies today because I'm gonna go see some family friends, and they asked me to make some. I also made these a lot, but I started to make them a lot more during Ramadan, and my parents started like really liking them, like because they always used to buy cookies, and but I just never realized how easy it is, and it's also like it's so good. Like everyone loves cookies, so yeah, like making cookies, like out of everything I've made during quarantine, I think like this was one of my best makings. But yeah, I mean, I love cookies. My family loves cookies. I think it's just fun to make. So yeah.
Definitely. I think right now I definitely got my like orange marmalade inspiration from some other video that I've seen, and I think just watching other people make these things kind of like motivates you to make your own.
Yeah.
Cool. And I think, like you said, like cookies are like they're simple, but they're so good, and it's always like nice to have like homemade goodies at home, especially right now. I think when all we're doing is staying at home. And I think also during Ramadan, having like special treats is also super fun. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
And keep making cookies. I hope your cookies turned out well today.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to the question and answer section. And to the audience, I encourage you to keep asking questions as we're having this discussion. But so I want to start off. Oh, before we move on, we have another section. Jaheen wants to share like a review about a movie she's watched. And so I think watching movies and, for entertainment or educational purposes right now is also super important. Another way to stay busy. And so Jaheen, do you want to share what movie you watched and what you want to share about that movie?
So recently, like I'm participating in an internship, and they told me that one of the required part of the internship was watching a movie called Just Mercy. And I was like, okay, a required portion of an internship, the movie must be really boring. So I went on and I searched up the movie. Turns out that, the movie was about basically how in America's justice system, African Americans are, as we have seen in the last few weeks, and even before that, we have seen that, how police brutality and basically the unlawful policing of Black and sometimes even brown men is kind of abundant. So the movie kind of focused on that. Just Mercy is a movie that stars Michael B. Jordan. And because the movie is focused on police brutality and wrongfully convicted African Americans, which is something that we have seen around this time with the Black Lives Matter protests. The movie is actually, even though the movie was released in 2019, it's quite a famous movie, so you would have to buy it for like $6. But right now, in the month of June, the movie is actually out for free in YouTube and Amazon Prime and some other streaming services. So if you just search it up, they will like let you rent the movie for free. And I think the movie was like really, really nice. So I went, I just started watching the movie and I wasn't really expecting much, but it was just so emotional and kind of gave like a very thorough, like we always hear about these kind of different problems, right? But given that most of us are not African Americans, most of us have not really experienced this firsthand. But the movie kind of like gave such a vivid description and visual like instances of the kind of things that are happening within the American justice system, and it was just outrageous. And then I saw the movie, and I kind of had some ideas that I never had before, and that just completely transformed the way that I saw the American justice system. And that made me think about all the different things that we can do as young people to kind of counter the prejudice and racism that is still present in America in 2020. So it was a great movie, and I highly recommend it.
No, definitely. I think in light of like recent events, it's very important, and like also how we discussed in the last episode, it's incredibly important to keep yourself like educated and like informed, and like movies like Just Mercy are such a useful resource, and it kind of, like you said, it visually gives you this like idea, and also helps you be empathetic. Like, not that you need to watch a movie to be empathetic to this cause, but I think it really sheds light on it in a way that like resonates deeply with you. And I think movies like Just Mercy, which is, as you said, free on multiple platforms right now, so I encourage people to take advantage of that, are super important, and especially right now. So thank you, Jahin, for sharing, and I hope other people have heed your advice and watch it too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Now we're going to move on to the question and answer section. So thank you, everyone, for sharing. And so now to direct the conversation back to mental health again, I want to talk about I think we dove straight into like how mental health affects us and like the impacts of it and all, and not really given enough like time to talk about what mental health actually is. And I think there are so many misconceptions, especially even now and in our like community, about mental health, that's the reason why people feel like it's taboo, and people don't feel comfortable talking to even their own friends and family about it. So one of the questions I want to start off with is, what is mental health when we're talking about it in a serious conversation like this? Is it just like, oh, being sad and like feeling kind of down or bummed because something bad happened? Or is it much more serious than that? Is it much more like, what are like some of the misconceptions that there are? And can you just like overcome mental illness and like have like a better mental health by just like thinking positively? These are like a whole bunch of questions, so feel free to tackle whichever and engage with each other.
So I think thinking positively is a really good start to improving your mental health. It's obviously not just going to, you can't just snap your fingers and it'll go away. It does take steps. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I agree. I think like a big misconception is like, especially like I guess teenagers, I heard a lot of parents that oh, we're just like feeling sad, or we're just not like what we're going through is not like it'll go away. So I think one of the main I feel like that parents should at least like just listen to their kids, or just like to hear what they're saying. And not think like, oh, it's not as serious. So
Yeah, definitely. I think there's like the severity of like mental illness is, I think, sometimes not recognized. It's not just being sad. Like, definitely everyone is sad, but I think sadness versus like depression and anxiety is like two very distinct things. And I think in general, everyone's mental health can be fragile. I think especially now in like our world today. But for parents, I think one of the things that people want to ask is what can you do to people that don't understand, like your parents or your younger like siblings or your family, like how can you have this conversation with them that, to help, so they can help guide you better and understand what you're going through. What are some things that you guys think that your parents could do, that you feel like you would like your parents or the older generation to do? And this can be like kind of like anything, or like something that your parents have done that you think other members of like the older generation could also do.
Well, I personally think that, like, since I kind of tackled the question regarding how do we communicate with our parents regarding mental health, and this is something that I should have mentioned in my response, but then again, I think obviously if you have supportive parents who you can reach out to and friends that you can reach out to, that's amazing for you. But at the same time, like I mentioned, mental health is still a huge stigma in the Bengali community in 2020. And, in order for you to reach out for support, you have to, if you're going to reach out for support, the people that you're reaching out to for support have to know that the problem even exists, right, in order to help you. So I think that if you have parents or family members or friends that you're reaching out to about your mental health struggles and they're not really aware of the problem or how it functions, then I think the first step is basically to kind of make them aware that the problem even exists. And this is not something that I have personally dealt with, but some of my friends, they had parents who did not really understand what mental health struggles were, but they were struggling and they were hurting and they needed somebody to help them. And our parents are the closest people to us. So I think the first way to kind of make your parents understand that mental health struggle exists is by kind of, you spend a lot of time together with your parents. Just start off talking about your struggles. And there are a lot of resources online that you can find that kind of demonstrate to you like what mental health struggles are and how to combat them. And if your parents, sometimes our parents feel like we're too young, we don't really know what we are talking about, and sometimes our struggles are labeled as a phase or something. So there are a lot of resources online, and there are also mental health hotlines, and your parents can over time become familiarized with these concepts. And there are a lot of TV shows that are led by professional doctors and people who have PhDs in mental health struggles, and they know what they're talking about. If your parents don't think that you know what you're talking about, they have to at least acknowledge that people who have degrees in and they have conducted research throughout their life in these topics know what they're talking about. So before, I guess, you kind of reach out to them for help, make sure that they're aware of the problem, they know what's going on, and they're familiar with some basic research about everything that mental health is about, basic struggles and the symptoms and how a youngster is feeling at that moment. And once you make sure that your parents are aware of what is going on, then you can bring out your own problem, like saying that, mom or dad, you see whatever you're seeing, like the researchers have done research in this, and I'm feeling that kind of way. And these are my symptoms. Or if they're aware of the problem, they will probably see the symptoms and say that this is how I'm feeling and I need help. And, before you did not know about this problem, and I can't blame you for not knowing about something because our society functions this way. So it's not your fault. But now you know. And once you know, you cannot ignore the problem. So I'm going through this. What should I do? Can I talk to you? Can I talk to my friends? Is there somebody that you know? Is there a psychologist that you know that I can speak to? And how do you combat this together? I think that's the personal way that I would approach. But I think it varies for everybody. So I'm open to like any other suggestions.
No, yeah, I think that was a very like complex and answer. So thank you for kind of like outlaying like one way to communicate. And I think it can feel like very overwhelming if you're in that position.
Definitely.
To also like go and educate someone else about it. And so I think having these resources and being able to just like have them able to present them to someone who doesn't know is very helpful. So I think that's one incredible way to do that. And I think one thing that people don't understand is like, is it like physical health, like the way like you physically get ill, like you get like a fever, or you break your arm, like, and then you have to heal from that, is like to like, I want to ask all the panelists really, is like mental health similar to like taking care of your physical health, or is it just like different, like Madhi and like Sophie and I guess Naz as well? What do you think? Because I think a lot of people think that like, because it's like an invisible like illness, it's hard to, you know, see the effect, like see the, you can only see like the symptoms and not the illness. And so it can be hard for people to understand that there is like a lot, for a lot of people, their mental health and mental illness comes from like chemical imbalance. I'm not really sure of like the exact like medical terms, but I know that it's very, like it is comparable to your physical, because your brain is like an organ, and sometimes it, you know, it needs a little help, and sometimes it does get ill. So I want to ask you guys, like, do you agree with this statement, or do you think?
I think that, like, I can kind of agree with that statement. I think that both your mental health and physical health, like, kind of integrate together. Like, your mental health is like, if you're really going through it, you know, I think, like, you have, like, the person that, like, there are physical symptoms that come with it. And, I guess, like, if that's really taking a toll on you, like, if your mental health is taking a toll on you, I think, like, along with that, your physical health also takes a toll on you. So, yeah, I think like with like some like disorders, like psychological disorders, like they're like the symptoms are also like physiological and physical, like they can like I guess work together. So yeah.
Exactly. Thank you. And I think it does, like Diane said, it's important to take like the lead from like researchers and like professionals who know what they're talking about. And there is a lot of like research, as like we realized while we were preparing for this panel, that there is a lot of research out there and a lot of like data and statistics that like kind of show the impact of this, and that you can't really deny that like it is impacting people. I think especially right now, I was having this like conversation earlier with one of my friends, and they were talking about how our bodies are like the way we react to stress and adrenaline is, you know, you have like an instant like a situation, you react to it and then it's over and then you move on. But now it's very hard to move on from something that's so constant, like the coronavirus, for example, but like also just like in general, I think the stressors that we have right now are very like persistent, and it's hard to like kind of just like move on from that kind of adrenaline and stress. And so I think one of the questions is like, is it like, I think now we do have like this kind of like big upsurge and like debate about like mental health and how important it is. And you guys have highlighted how, you know, there's different ways of like tackling it and like different ways of you like personally handling it. But do you guys think that mental health, I think we kind of went over this question earlier, is like a public health crisis like the coronavirus is? Is it like the government or like someone else's like responsibility to, you know, either advocate for better resources for the people, or advocate for like better environments that don't provoke such stressors? I'm kind of asking like people who haven't really talked, Madhi and like Saif, like, do you guys think that, you know, taking care of your mental health and like the mental health of like the people right now is a public health crisis? Like, is our situation right now, because of the pandemic, because of like social, you know, unrest right now, or just in general, is it like something we should like seriously take a look into as like, on a national or like global scale. I mean, I think it's a big question.
So should we look at mental health in a national scale? Like, should we address it at a national scale? Is that what you're
Kind of.
asking? Yeah, I think we should definitely address mental health as on a national scale, because the productivity of this nation is solely based on the mental health of its citizens. So if the citizens are not in a good state of mind, the country won't function properly. And that's my opinion, at least.
Definitely. I think we're like, I think health is like, should be one of like the most important things. And I think, especially in light of like the coronavirus, we're seeing that like public health and like health institutes aren't, funding is like a big question, a big debate right now with like, defunding the police and like kind of realizing that we're not really investing in the right kind of places for our communities. And obviously, as we can see, it has been and it still is like negatively, like very detrimentally, like impacting our communities, especially as we mentioned, like the marginalized communities that don't have like access to resources. And I guess like, I think even taking care of like mental health, do you guys think that outside of just coronavirus, like, is it like a privilege to be able to even like address taking care of your mental health? Like the ability to like go to therapy or just even have like time to relax and take like downtime. Is it like a privilege that we have? I'm listening to Brandon. I mean, I guess like it's hard to answer if you haven't dealt with it or haven't had experience with the topic. I think for Hannah, who wants to say something.
So you might want to tell me that last line again.
So I'm just asking. We talked a lot about like how taking care of your mental health is important, especially right now, and like. But the thing is, like doctors, like any kind of like treatment, it is like hard. It can be hard to access to some people, or like even to have like the time to like and the effort to like put into like taking care of your mental health. Like not everybody might not have that ability. So it's like a privilege to have the access to mental health resources.
Definitely. Because mental health, in itself, whenever we talk mental health, one of the big concerns is that I need to visit a doctor, and they are very expensive. They're not affordable by low insurance users, and it is very difficult to have access to a particular, psych consultant, even in like in a short notice. You actually have to have. So I think it is definitely, even though we have the privilege, like let's say we can spend enough and afford to talk to someone, a therapist, but it still is very expensive. So definitely that's one thing. There are community therapists, and that is one thing that I think has been over the years because mental health has not been something that has been widely circulated and people haven't talked about over the years. These community therapists have just not had enough work, but I think that is one thing where we can make a difference. We can actually get people to know that there are community therapists. Go out to them because they are actually less expensive, and they could help you understand that there is essentially a big problem, or we're just dealing with a lot of anxiety for you. And then there are other ways, like even if you're not privileged enough, a lot of especially National Health Institute And a lot of these nonprofit organizations have opened up online evaluation forms. I was looking through a lot of information about where you could get easy therapy, and there are actually online therapists these days, which are basically, they don't talk a lot about what you feel, but they just ask you to answer a few questions. So it's kind of self-screening and understanding that where you are in the picture, how vulnerable you feel, and if you are okay at that point of time to talk to somebody, you should. So I think they're making some differences to the society by being on the other side and helping those who need it most, without really thinking, who has the privilege to achieve help. But I think this conversation has to be going everywhere. It needs to, people need to connect to each other and say that, yes, if there is somebody in my community who's a therapist and he's doing it, let's talk to him, let's make this a reality. So, yeah, I mean, it's happening, but it's still very slow. Maybe because we are just not very aware of the kind of benefits that we have around us.
Definitely. I mean, you've listed like so many things that I hadn't even known about myself. And
Me
so
too. It was enlightening the last week.
yeah, but definitely like one of the last comments said that like I think it starts off with like being informed and like having that be a part of like our education and a part of like our everyday conversation, and having that ability to acknowledge that this exists is very important. Like it's not a lot, but it's definitely like the first step. So thank you to the panelists today. It's a very tough, difficult subject, and I think it makes you very vulnerable to talk about it. So thank you for sharing.
Excellent. Hey, thank you so much. So I'm back. So again, what a wonderful, what a thought-provoking, highly talented individuals talking about such an important topic. And I thank you again, all of you, to be a big part of this. So with that, let's wrap up this segment, and don't go away yet. There's one little thing about the slideshow that we end with. So just hang tight for that. And then I like to, let me see, let's go back to our last segment here again. So before we leave, again, a couple of good things about this mental health related exercise that you can do at home is you can watch movie. Like this is the best time to spend some quality time with your parents, because we are all so busy. So this is we usually watch TV and watch a show every evening, and then you can also take your bike out and go for biking, or you can play some board games. You can do some exercise. There's so many videos that you can do, workout, yoga, and all kinds of stuff. So just keep yourself busy and have a positive mind, and then I'm sure we're gonna get through this. And again, be positive. We will be done with all this, and it's coming very quickly. So all our scientists are working really, really hard. So just don't panic or don't be sad. It's just a matter of time. And take this as a lesson. Like, we are all becoming very, very strong. So, you, the next generation, be patient and be strong. And with that, I like to say goodbye until next week, the same time, next Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern. And I think we're going to talk about politics in general and how we can make a difference in the democracy in this world. So without further ado, let's go back to the last segment. And again, thank you all and have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.